Welcome to NEC's Cutting Edge Playhouse, where we have the pleasure of interviewing our 4 finalists. Today, we are speaking with Christian Elder. Hi, Christian. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell us the name of your play, the log line. Give us a little bit of information about yourself and the synopsis of the play.
My play is titled #NWORD, and the log line more or less is a mother of a son confronts the mother of a daughter that attends the same school. And apparently the daughter has called the son the N-word on the school bus that morning. And that's more or less the starting point, the launching point for the whole story. That's the impetus for the characters to move forward. The general overall story is the trajectory of where these two people move from that point, creating, or rather having a sort of unintended relationship that starts to unspool based upon that inflection point. Their husbands come into the fold of this story, and they become, strangely, oddly enough, fast friends. And it's what kind of percolates underneath that friendship that the story starts to really sort of delve into.
It's just a really good story that kind of speaks to what's happening in the world today, right?
I do think it does so in a very deceptive way, and that's very intentional. It's an attempt to tell a story that has to deal with the larger issues that we're dealing with, easily dealing with in society and in this country, but doing so in such a small, sequestered way with the lives and the relationships of these people that it almost appears that we're not really going to make it, we're going to charge it and make it that large. So that by the time that you realize that some of these little decisions that we make in life and with the people around us have these greater impacts. And we have to be very sort of careful about these decisions that we make. That it really sort of encapsulates and symbolizes the problems of our greater society.
So why an 8-year-old? Why use 8-year-olds as children?
Well, 8 is not so much was a specific number that I chose. It was really very arbitrary. The story is not so much about the children. The story is about the adults. The part of the deceptive nature of the story, the sleight of hand that I'm trying to create, is to make you believe that this has to do with the issues between the children, when in fact it actually has more so to do with the issues between the adults. And that's the irony. That's the irony that's played throughout. But there's similar parallels that are also reflected that are, whereas, like, as opposed to, is it really about black and white, or is it about gender? Is it about gender, or is it about sexual orientation? It's all these things that I use as parallels to make us look at and really start to wonder. And that's how, as I've expressed before, it expresses and brings a sort of larger lens on some of the things in the microcosm towards the macro of society.
How did it feel to get a call that you were one of the finalists for the Playwright competition for NEC.
I thought it was pretty awesome. It was great. It was great to hear that. It was great to hear the validation for the work. Whenever you dedicate a lot of work and you dedicate passion to something that you love to do, obviously writers do that. It's great to receive some kind of recognition, any kind of recognition really, but to win a competition that is of this level is very gratifying, and you can only be grateful. I was hunkered down in my COVID shelter. No, I was just by myself. I was completely taken by surprise. I was taken aback. I had no idea who was calling me and for what reason. And by the time I figured it out, it was very elating for me, yes.
When did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
I began initially wanting to paint pictures with words. And what I mean by that was writing poetry. That was a lot of the initial writing that I started doing. And shortly after that, I started to transition into a desire to tell stories. And I identified certain formats by which I wanted to tell stories. The first format I gravitated towards were for movies and for TV and that. And then a little later, much later, although in the back of my mind, I had been considering it for quite a while. I knew that I wanted to do something for the stage and for theater. I definitely wanted to write a play, and I just don't think I ever really found the concepts that were amenable to the challenge of writing a play.
What inspired you to write about this particular subject?
I wanted to write about the subject because I heard a story that was very similar. And because I heard this story, I said, wow, that's really fascinating. That's a really interesting flashpoint to begin a play. And I had been wanting to find a subject matter to work on for my second play. And I didn't have anything yet, but I heard this story and I was like, this is just deeply fascinating. And it kept nagging at me for well over a month. And then I settled down to the idea of crafting a story around it. And I just started, I just launched. I just started going. And I really kind of understood where the characters were going, what the characters were about. I knew how I wanted to end it. And what I found very, very strange about it, because I initially finished the first draft of this play in spring of 2019, was that I found a lot of the things that I was talking about and a lot of the things that I was touching on, even though there were things that I were very personally familiar with in the context of my lives and the lives of people that I knew and friends and things of that nature, I found that all this subject matter just a year later was being consumed and subsumed and being a part of the zeitgeist of popular culture and mainstream media. And I was just like, I was kind of chagrined by the prescient qualities of this particular piece, which has made it a very interesting process going back into it and reworking it and doing continued work on it, because it's like, wow, it's like it's like bringing the hindsight of everything that has occurred in the last 2 years back to something that was already beginning to touch the ceiling on what was about to occur. So yeah.
So this isn't your first play. I understand like you had another play and you worked with another theater company, a very famous and beautiful theater company. So tell us like a little bit about that play and that journey and what that was.
Well, I had a play and it wasn't produced.
Right.
It was a reading that I did at the Billie Holiday Theater through the workshop that they have over there. I'm blanking on the workshop.
The one with the Frank Severus.
There you go. Thank you very much, because
that's okay.
It would be a terrible shame if I didn't.
Even that's an honor, right?
Yeah, no, it is a real honor because they have a real storied background, and it was great to be able to do that, and for them to come in and to read my work aloud. And it was the very first play that I had written. And that was a really, really amazing process and journey and an honor. And I don't think I assumed that I would be lucky enough to find myself in circumstances like that quite as soon again after that. I don't know how to express that, because actually I ended up doing an initial reading of hashtag NWORD at Urban Stages at the end of 2019, and it just and being selected by you guys is also just been an incredible honor. I can't believe that as of recent, I think it was, I want to say 2016 that I did the first reading of my first play. And I just keep getting readings in New York. And so that's kind of nice.
And that's the journey of a writer. I think it's so important for like our viewers to understand, especially aspiring writers or writers like yourself, that there's a process, and sometimes, I mean, all you have to do is write, because like you said, you were ready when the call came. You were ready, and so that's an opportunity. That's being ready for the opportunity. So I think that's a beautiful thing. But you're also a fellow filmmaker. So I was excited to see that in addition to being a playwright, that you were also a fellow filmmaker, and you had 2 shorts. What's going on with your shorts, or where have they been? Tell us a little bit about the journey with so we understand like who you are, Mr. Christian.
Well, I look at myself as, for lack of a better term, a hobo filmmaker. I come along with my hat in hand. If somebody wants to put enough coins into the hat, it's going to be enough for me to put together a few friends and a decent camera, a place to shoot. I'll make a short film, and I'll submit it to some film festivals and hopefully get an audience for it. And I have been able to do that, and I've been very grateful to be able to do that. And I'm continuing to go out there, and the hope is, to take that hat around and to get a little bit more coins so that I can do something a little longer at some point or time. Yes. So as far as my shorts are concerned, I use the analogy that I feel like I'm a guy with a hat that I'm passing it around for a few coins, so that I can get something going every now and then. And films, as you probably know, are very hard to do. And if you are able to do them, you are lucky to do them. You have people that are willing and to put their time and effort into it. It's nothing short than a minor miracle. It really is. And I just kind of move along with that attitude. I'm hoping someday that I'll have a few more coins in the hat. That's going to allow me to do something that's a little longer, maybe like a feature movie or something like that, because I spend a great deal of my time, and have spent a great deal of my time prior to writing plays, writing feature scripts, and that's a big passion of mine as well. And if I didn't spend all that time and all that work doing that sort of thing, I probably would not have been informed as I wouldn't have the discipline, I should say, to approach writing for the stage, because I do think writing for the stage takes a particular kind of discipline. And to bring it all the way full circle, directing anything takes a great deal of discipline.
Yes, and a lot of work.
It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience, and you learn so much from that. And I personally would say to any writer, whatever you're doing, whatever format that you're writing in, try directing something, because that will humble you, and that will help you appreciate more the craft of writing.
It will. It also will inform you. I think writing short films definitely prepares you for playwriting, because with a film, especially a feature, you can be all over the place. You get like 99 locations if that's what you choose to do. But on the stage, you have to kind of be super creative to nail it down to these limited. You can't have your actors like all over the place on a stage. So I love that. You have that well-roundedness. And so if you had the opportunity to ask, per se, a professional theater writer, and August Wilson, if he was still alive, what would be the main question that you think you would want to ask?
That's a very, very interesting question. You know what? I think that the question that I would ask is really, really broad. It's going to sound really almost ambiguous, but it's going to be why. That's really it. It's just like, why? Because I think that every writer has a different why, and I think that why is born from something that is completely and entirely unique, and that first of all, you can find the similarities in that unique quixotic nature of what the why is, but you can also see where they're coming from, where their perspective is. Like for example, I remember reading about specifically why Walter Mosley decided to become a writer. And I just loved it, because he used to code computers. He used to work with the zeros and the ones, like the Matrix.
Okay.
And he said, at one day I was looking in that code, and I could see more than the code, and that I knew that inside this code was the building blocks for writing for me, and I could do the same thing except applied with words. And I just loved that whole notion, that whole imagery. And I was like, yeah, and so I'm always fascinated in knowing what the why is for each writer. So yeah.
What do you do when you have writer's block? What are some things that you do if you have like writer's block?
What is writer's block?
Love it. I love it. See, I should have said writer's block or technique. Aha, gotcha. You got me. I love
Let me just expound upon that further. I've encountered writer's block, and I think it's very real, and people have it, and they have like serious issues with it. I don't really have a lot of problems with it. For me, when I have trouble writing, it just means I need to go hiking. I need to take a walk around the block. I need to clear my head. I need to go somewhere else. I can't focus on knocking my head against the wall to try and get something out, because it's usually not the case, as far as the solution is concerned. It's not gonna solve anything. There is a, and I'm paraphrasing, there's a line in the Bible that basically says there's no amount of worrying that's going to stave off our mortality. Same thing applies towards writing. No amount of worry is going to get in the way of, you just got to sit down, you got to finish the work that you're working on. And if it's not happening, go do something else. Come back.
Given that you're going to be working with the dramaturge and working with your piece, is it your first time? Is it your 100th time? And what do you feel, or how are you feeling about going to dive into that whole arena?
I'm very comfortable with that. I come from an ethic when it comes to writing, and I think this is partially because I'm a little bit more informed by the world of TV and movies, as far as going about things, is that it's never really done until it goes up. Until it's shot. It's like, sometimes, when I've even done, one of my short films, I've rewritten a line or a word in the script as we're shooting it. So the same thing, I have the same attitude as it applies towards working on something like this. I think it's a fluid thing. I think it's a living thing, the play and the script itself, and it ought to be, so that I can grow as a writer working on it, and also simultaneously it can grow, because I think any written piece reaches its own place of autonomy, and it's doing its own thing, and you have to service it. You can't bring your ego to it. You can bring your ego to it sometimes, but you can't bring your ego to it all the time, because it's like a child. It's going to go off and wants to learn and do things. So yeah.
I love when to hear the openness. All the playwrights that are in this competition you guys are amazing and wonderful, and we just cannot wait to see your work and see you work the work and see the work go up. So we're just so excited for you. Congratulations again.